George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Meg O'Connell is the executive director of the Allyn Family Foundation, and they do lots of great work in the community. You might be familiar with one of their projects, among many, but one of their projects that's really taken off is the Salt City Market mixed use facility. They've got restaurants downstairs, apartments upstairs that are affordable, and that is a rare feat in this economy. And so, Meg, let's just talk about the work of the what the Allyn Family Foundation is, and then some of the work that you're doing, and then update us on some of the new plans that you have, especially centering around downtown and building community, because that's what you're, at least that's what I feel you're all about.
That's great. And I love to hear that, because that is kind of what we're all about. How do you build community, and how can we, as a philanthropic organization, right, think about what is our role that we can play? Government has a role to play, but sometimes it's just, sometimes you just really need the ability for something that has more flexibility, to be able to work outside the system, or to really make a difference. And so a great example is that you mentioned the Salt City Market. The concept for that had been around for a while in Syracuse. We knew we wanted to kind of do something like that, but we couldn't find an organization as great as our partners at Home Headquarters are, Housing Visions. They do housing, but they also then don't do commercial development. And folks who might do commercial development, traditional developers, wouldn't look at a community development project like this. So it became, an example of where we kind of looked at ourselves and said, hey, wait a minute, we can't find a partner to do that. Because in the traditional foundation model, a foundation, not-for-profit organizations apply to a foundation, and then they give out percentage of their assets every year. So we decided that okay, wait, we can do this. So we created a new operating entity, and we essentially embarked on building the Salt City Market, and created a mission and a vision. We used the Allyn Foundation as kind of the bank to loan against. When we first started as a construction loan, then we were able to secure other partners and other funding. But there was also a lot of skepticism. Within when we first started talking about that building, people thought it was crazy on the southern end of downtown.
Because it was a new construction. It was
brand new, right? It was on a deserted 1.8-acre lot at the southern end of downtown. People were like, this is crazy. It's right next to the rescue mission. People aren't going to come. And it's been a huge success, which is just a test to the community that supported it. They want places and spaces like the Salt City Market to be able to go to. They want to support, startup businesses. I mean, all of those businesses in there are, people who had always had a dream of being involved in culinary or starting their own business, but starting a new restaurant costs a lot of money. So to be able to do this in a much more economical way, and you're not starting out with a huge amount of debt to open up the doors to a restaurant. So just a good example. And the fact that the co-op, the grocery store, people love the community room. And then, as you mentioned, we had also been really wanting to push mixed income housing. We know that it's something that's being done in other cities. We know that it appeals to a lot of people. And it's just one of those great things. We have 26 apartments, and 6 are really deeply affordable. 6 are, so six are very deeply affordable. So think about like the HUD rates, Section 8 affordability. 10 are what we call workforce. So they're also affordable, where people don't pay more than 30% of their salary. So people making $40,000, $35,000. And then you have 10 that are market rate. And everyone lives together. All the apartments look the same. Nobody knows what their neighbor is paying for the same units, but people have really loved it. So it's actually led us to what's our next project, which is the Chimes building right across the street. It was never our intention to keep doing community development, but the Chimes building has been a problem building. It's in the sense that it is one of the most historic buildings in downtown Syracuse, built by the same architect.
And for people, it's the 500 building, I call it.
Yeah, the 500 building, 500 South Salina, like right there on the corner. I mean, all the old pictures of Salina Street, it anchored the southern downtown. Used to have a lot of offices. It was completely an office building, actually. And, just has this great history in Syracuse, had just kind of fallen in disrepair over the last 20, 25 years. We'd been owned by a downstate developer, and we kept looking out across at that building thinking, wow, if that was activated, we'd have even more people downtown, and it could be a great place. So took us over 2 years of trying to negotiate, trying to find other development partners to work with us. But ultimately we purchased the property, and now we will start construction in July 1, and we're putting in 152 more mixed income apartments, 1, 2, and even 3-bedroom units, because we know that there's still challenges for families trying to find 3-bedroom units. So, and it's that same combination, a third of deeply affordable, a third of workforce, and then a third of market rate.
Wow, and I would love for that same sort of energy to be spread around the community. But here's what people are saying, right? I was just at a meeting the other day about a development that is proposed for one of the buildings in Syracuse, and not in Syracuse, in DeWitt, and the developer was asked, "Will there be affordable housing?" Now, there's only about a third of the number of units, 15 to be exact. And it was the absolute no. And they said it was too expensive to do that. And so, is that fair I mean, you don't know what's in his pockets or what his budget is, but is it a burden to think about affordable housing?
So I wouldn't say it's a burden. Right now, it's difficult to do because the interest rates are so high. So
Okay.
borrowing is so much harder.
Okay.
And so banks want to see how are you going to pay back that debt that you're going to borrow. And if you can rent the same type of apartments and it makes your numbers work, then especially when you have a smaller number of units. I think the flip side to that is, again, when you're looking at return on investment, how much are you expecting to get a return even as a developer, right? And it's easy for us to say we're not for profit, we're not trying to make a return, so all we have to do is cover our debt obligations, and it's very different. But I do think that the current situation is really tough with the interest rates, but I also would hope that even if you're only doing a few units, it makes a huge difference in the availability in our community when we are struggling so hard to find housing. And and just to be really clear, it's housing for people who are working. Like,
Right.
these are people who are working who cannot find housing in our community because they're being so priced out.
Mm, yeah.
So it's, I think that there's just kind of this misnomer when you think about affordable housing. It's very different than, senior housing or housing for people with disabilities. I mean, so I think that we just really need to try and push those developers, even if we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking for maybe 10% or 20% of your units to book them as affordable. And
Right.
you're still getting money. It's not like people are getting anything for free. But instead of paying the market rate rent for it, it's a few $100 less a month. So, really looking at those numbers, I think, is really important.
It really is important. And so, this project, you say you hope to get that started in July of 2024. And then, what's the timetable for completion?
So we should finish by the end of the year 2025. It's going to take about
Wow.
a year to year and a half to finish them up.
And what a new anchor. And then, what about the hotel across the street? Are you looking at that? What have you
Not looking
heard?
at that, but we have 400 people on our waiting list to try and get
Really?
into the Salt City market. And people get in the Salt City market and very few people move out. So we also know that there's a huge demand for the type of mixed income housing that we're proposing.
Yeah, and speaking of Salt City Market, I mean, just the concept of that, right? The way that entrepreneurs, or many of them first timers, in terms of the way that you opened that, where they had test days and you could test, and then I don't want to call it a lottery, but that's how I look at it, right? They were
Yeah,
selected, and you still have some of the original businesses in Salt City Market, but then some of them have graduated, right?
right. Right. It's definitely not an incubator model. You don't have to leave after 3 years. If you're doing well and you want to move on, that's great. Miss Prissy's, for example, Dreamer Glen, is now opening up her own restaurant on Warren. She always dreamed of doing that. So we are so happy for her and so excited that, at the Salt City Market, she built her brand and now she's been able to take it. Some people are opening up second locations. Cake Bar, Ewan opened up the Cake Bar Cafe over by Dinosaur Barbecue. And then Baghdad for us just opened up in Westvale Plaza, another
Oh,
Baghdad too. So that's
wow.
really exciting. And then we've had some, so we've opened up some changes. Some people, have decided after 3 years, okay, they've done and they're good. So it's been really nice to kind of just give people, it's all about giving people the opportunities. They are their own small businesses. We're not going to tell them what to do. And we just want to keep supporting them and trying to make them be as successful as they can. But of the business owners, it's just so wonderful to see they've bought homes, they've created wealth, which was what the whole strategy was, to be able to be a wealth generation strategy for all these businesses.
And so, how do you see the Allen Foundation playing a role in some of what the community is clamoring for? So you said housing, right? Making downtown an interesting place, and thinking about the recent development, right down the street. I can't think of the name of it, but where the theater is.
Yeah, city center. Yep,
Yes,
right now.
yes, yes,
Yep.
yes. Yeah. And what that means for that part of downtown. So when you think about the things that you're interested in, what are you trying to do as a foundation to improve the community? What are you focused on?
So I think what we're focused on is continuing to do this kind of economic development around community economic development, giving opportunities, especially to people, Black and brown professionals who usually might not have access to the capital to be able to start businesses, you know, um, and kind of to address that there's a gap there, right? That we haven't seen that same type of ability to be successful. So how do we change that in our community? So that's kind of more of our lane. We like to see that, downtown's just getting revitalized. It's great to see what the market will do just
Mm.
because people themselves are more interested in investing downtown. But we want to make sure that there's something for everybody and that it's welcoming for all. And I don't always think it was that way. And if it's only market rate, then that's also going to be challenging for people who are going to choose to live downtown. So we're continuing to work on the downtown, continuing to work now with the redevelopment of the Chimes building, 500 South Salina. We're also a huge proponent and working a lot in the redevelopment of the 15th Ward in the Blueprint 15 neighborhood. My colleague Stephanie Pasquale, who's been really, championing that effort in partnership with the city and the Syracuse Housing Authority for a long time, trying to really elevate resident voice, which I think has been really great. We've seen that just recently, how, when you really try and empower the residents to speak and to have a voice to speak, that can really chart their future of what they want for their neighborhood. And that's really what we're trying to drive. One of the things that they want, which we've been working on now for 2+ years, is this creation of the Children Rising Center. So we're really looking forward to building. It's going to be essentially a YMCA with a play space and an early learning center right in the neighborhood. So we are really excited. It's something that the residents have talked a lot about. They want opportunities and places and spaces for children and youth in that neighborhood to go that are safe, that will give them, opportunities for jobs and job training and just to build their social capital. So those are kind of two of the big ones that we're working on now.
Yeah, you call it the Children Rising Center.
Yes.
Yeah, and so would that be the new Y or just another Y?
So the YMCA has it looks like it's going to be their new downtown Y,
Okay,
but I think I got to wait for them to make that announcement.
okay, okay.
I think they're still evaluating that.
uh,
Initially, it was going to be a satellite Y for them, but I think
right.
as time continues to go on, it's going to be a 48,000 square foot. Part of the total building is 78,000 square feet.
Okay.
And different to a Y, it's going to have a big turf field. That was
Hmm.
something that the residents in the neighborhood really wanted. There's not a place for indoor Pop Warner in there's not a place for indoor soccer in the winter. There's not a real good indoor field in the city of Syracuse.
Well,
Burnett Park
similar.
has one, but it's cold. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're talking about similar to what's the place on 481 where they have the indoor? Yeah,
Yeah. Hopkins Road, those types of places. And there's
yeah.
nothing in the city. Right.
Well, that is
Yeah.
that's really exciting. And so, um, how do people, and I know you have like Rashida Caldwell doing
Yeah.
work for you. What's her job over there?
So Rashida is she's our all around. She is the director of youth and community partnerships. So she is, as anyone who knows her, is our connector.
Oh yeah, she's
People,
out here.
will reach out to the foundation all the time. They've got questions. They're trying to navigate something. She helps connect them. She has a lot of connections within community groups and not-for-profits. She also oversees, we've done for 4 years in a row now, in partnership with the city of Syracuse and Onondaga County, a summer fellows program where we're kind of the intermediary, that we provide funds to organizations that want to run programs for youth ages
Mm,
12 pretty much to 18 in the summertime. We run
mm,
4 to 6 week programs, and then we stipend those kids, which I think is what's so important. Youth programming is so important in the summertime, but a lot of times it doesn't include a stipend. And when almost 50% of the kids living in the city of Syracuse are living in poverty, it's kind of a carrot and a stick. They'll come to programs and they really appreciate, and they're so excited at the end of the summer when they've been able to receive a stipend. And so last year we also partnered with the superintendent in the Syracuse City School District. So they ran summer programs in 8 of their buildings and also stipend all of the kids who participated.
oh, that's outstanding, and that is like you said, a little stipend goes a long way
Yeah.
when you think about it. And Meg, does the Allen Foundation have particular grant cycles, or how do people apply for funding?
So we don't really have grant cycles. We don't do that kind of traditional. We don't have an online application. We have what we call an opportunity fund. So people it's right on our website, allynfoundation.org, and you can just send us a one pager of what you're looking for, what you need, what your organization is. And then myself, Rashida, as you mentioned, on my team, other colleagues, Martin Jacobs, Stephanie Pasquale, and then Tiffany Lloyd also does really important work. She runs a programs around what we call reproductive well-being. She's kind of running a movement, I love to call it, among Black and Brown women ages 16 to 25, around, just making healthy choices and how do they themselves fit within relationships, and kind of down your alley, George. They
Hmm.
do a lot of, she does amazing work, and created a whole program called Layla's Got You, which is all about answering honest questions about sexual health and relationships.
Oh,
Um,
I
so
need Tiffany on here.
you do need Tiffany on here. She is remarkable. She's got these things they call Layla ambassadors. Now she's got, literally almost hundreds of them that are out in the community. They do programs. They speak in Albany about, what women of their demographic are interested in, what they're struggling with, what they need, to make really good choices. And it's a lot of it is about economic opportunities and everything else that we talk about.
We hear, Meg, about the poverty rate in our community, and particularly the disparity between for Black and Brown folks in this community. And you talked earlier about also being a conduit to help with those opportunities. How does that work, and what are the ways that you see that these issues are being addressed?
So I think it's a complex problem, because part of what we need to do better, and it's not just Syracuse, but as a country, right, that is, you just have this huge economic divide. And I think especially in Syracuse, we need to, all boats will be lifted if we can increase some of the median wages that are being paid
Hmm.
for people that are, working day in, day out, and they still can't make the ends meet, right? And so a lot of what we have been trying to do, specifically, is around some of the workforce opportunities. We know there are good jobs for people, but how do we get people access to those jobs? So things like Syracuse Build, which I've been very involved with, and other programs to be able to try and find pathways for people to be able to get stipend, because they need to be able to be paid while they're in training programs, but then they need to be able to figure out how to get to those jobs. So I think that that's a really important community priority with Micron coming in and all these opportunities. If we don't do something different, we know that those opportunities aren't going to all go to Black and Brown people, right? And statistically, they haven't. So how do we come up with some intentional ways to make sure that they do?
Yeah. It's good work, Meg. I mean, we asked the questions, but it's good work. And I think, have you seen improvements, or what improvements have you seen in making the community more accessible to all?
So I think we are making improvements. I think it helps a lot that we have a county executive and a mayor who are willing to work together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of overlay that with the philanthropic community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you can work, if there is more alignment, then we can say, where are the gaps? Where this is county can only do so much, the city can only do so much, their dollars get handspringed, as does the state. But then how can we work in either private industry or philanthropic dollars to change things to make better outcomes? So I do feel like we've been really supportive, for example, on the mayor's infill strategy to try and build new homes. Right, there was only so much that the mayor could put in, and so each of those homes that Home Headquarters and Jubilee are building, we're putting $30,000 into each of those, for example, because we know home ownership is still one of the best wealth generation strategies. So how do we get better homes in the city of Syracuse? We just got to get it to scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we have better homes in the city, then people will stay in the city instead of moving out to the suburbs. And I think that's really important. You see all the work that's being done on lead, which is great, but it's a challenge because we don't have the construction workers, we don't have the people that are trained in the lead abatement in homes. So it's a really difficult, everything is all interconnected. You think about childcare, trying to do a lot of work on trying to make better childcare for people so they can work, right? And yet childcare as an industry, people are paid so low. So you don't tell your son or daughter, oh, you should become a childcare worker, because you're not going to get paid a lot, and yet that's one of the most important jobs that we have in terms of those little kids' brains. So I guess it's a long way of saying sometimes it's easier to identify the complex problems because we know what they are and what the challenges are. And sometimes it's still just trying to figure out what the roadmap is to change that. And as a community, I hope that we will continue to keep doing that, and then acknowledge it's not going to happen overnight. I think that's always the hard thing. People want things to change real quickly, but it takes a lot longer. It takes a lot. It just takes time. I mean, I do think the Salt City Market is such a great testament. Sometimes people in Syracuse, one of the most things we do is we get down on ourselves and we think, oh my God, nothing's going to change. And we just, whatever, it's cold. Who wants to live here? I mean, I love to live here. I love to live in upstate New York. I love it here. And I think that if the Salt City Market has shown anything, is like that's the future. We can be a vibrant and we can be a prosperous city, and people can succeed. Not only just those 10 vendors that are there, but the whole community wins.
And it's been a smashing success, for example, and continued good work and all of the things that you do, Meg, in partnership with other folk. But thank you for the focus, and thank you for the time to give us an update as to what's happening with Allyn Foundation. If you want to know more, allynfoundation.org. To learn more about what they do and how they can help you do more things, good things in the community. Man, keep up the good work.
Hey, thank you, George. Anytime. Thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. And again, it takes us all. We're all part of this whole piece to make this community what we want it. If we can see it, then we can dream it and we can make it happen.
Let's do it together.
I appreciate
We're stronger
it.
together.
Stronger
Inspiration
together
for the nation.